Mike Leach, here's the voice of the Cougars, Matt Chazanow.
We are live here at Zeppo's. It is that time of the week. Great to be with everybody here. It's a packed house, as always, and it is Mike Leach en route. Just got word he has just left a very foggy Martin Stadium. It's like a cloud just went and sat right on top of the field there at Martin Stadium. On the punts, the ball was kind of hard to see way up into the sky. But the guys are back at it, working hard toward the Stanford game. 2 home games remain. Then the Apple Cup. Cougs trying to figure out how to get 2 of them to get to bowl eligibility. 3 would be ideal, as Washington State comes into this one 4-5 against an identically 4-5 Stanford team. Different league record. They're 3-4 in the pack, but they are 4-5 overall, and they come into this one for a 130 kick. A tough one at Cal, 33-20, the final. A couple of late touchdowns for each team, but Cal's defense is really good. A little bit of controversy. We can talk about that a little bit. I don't think Coach can talk about it too much. I don't want to get him in any trouble, but a 33-20 final, all said and done. What we will do is a quick recap of it, and then and Mike Leach will join us here after that. Anthony Gordon has been just fantastic. In fact, he is likely on pace to get to 4,000 passing yards this game with at least 2 remaining. Gordon's been really, really good, yeah. Among the amazing parts of what he's doing, 421 yards a game, 71% completion percentage, 34 touchdowns, and 10 interceptions are his numbers. He has been so good. 455 passes. He has been sacked fewer than 10 times. There was an article written by Theo about some of the penalties. I was actually talking to Mason Miller about it today. It hasn't been perfect, but in a lot of ways it's been really effective. He has barely been touched this year through these first, through this first set of games with just the back third basically of this season to go here. So back quarter of the season really to go. So let's relive the recap of the Cal game. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll talk to Mike Leach live here at Zeppo's next.
Cougs, Golden Bears.
Marcus Strong there on the blocker. And a bizarre start to this ball game as Hicks brings it all the way back to the left end zone. 14-15 on the clock, a 2-point conversion for Washington State. It's 6-2. And Monster takes the snap at the 15, dumps it off over the right slot, catches. He lost the ball. It's scooped up here by Skylar Thomas. Washington State tackled at the 20, near side of the field. Snap back at the Cal 17. Gordon wants the end zone. It's caught near side. A dive. Arcanado, touchdown. 17-yard hookup. Brandon Arcanato's 7th grab of the first half. And Washington State is back into the ball game with its first offensive touchdown. 45 seconds left, and Washington State will try to tie the game with a 2-point conversion. A kick of 39 yards. Snap is down. The hold is blocked. The kick is blocked. It pops up into the air and dies down on the turf. It's the second blocked kick of the ball game. 14:08 left, fourth quarter, and big Lamont McDougal is energized. In a 20-14 score, the Cougars sideline greets the special teams unit. They've gotten their paws on 2 kicks. Snap back to Monster. It's a run pass option. Oh, he keeps it, turns the corner, and down into the end zone, and that will do it. There's a 13-yard scamper for Monster. That will inflate the disparity to an amount that's not reflective of how competitive this was. Will not influence the outcome. Pass to the left is a touchdown. To Renard Bell, there is a quick slant. Makes it 33-20. Cal takes a knee, and the Cougars with a really tough one here in Berkeley. A 33-20 final. Washington State falls to 4-5 overall, 1-5 in the league.
More from Zeppo's after this on the Washington State Sports Network from Learfield IMG College. Your trust in a bank that's been focused on serving the people and businesses in Washington and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, Equal Housing Lender, member FDIC.
Back here live at Zeppo's, we are talking ball. Coach Leach is en route from the foggy Thursday night football practice field. Cougs take on Stanford, and this one, Washington State has beaten Stanford 3 straight times. First time since the 0-1 to 0-3 stretch. So Washington State trying to go for 4 here over the Cardinal, and the Cougs will do it at 1:30, as I had alluded to previously. They take on Oregon State the next week. Beavers host Arizona State this weekend, and then Cougs head over for a short week road Friday game against the Washington Huskies, which is always easier said than done. Short week road Fridays are brutal no matter who the opponent is, and the Cougs will do that for the last game of the year against Washington. The Cougars had that great game I alluded to from Anthony Gordon in terms of 400 passing yards once again, 34 touchdowns. You heard maybe really late in that highlight clip there, the recap. They threw that late touchdown to Renard Bell. Renard caught that one from 1 yard out, so he now has 4 receiving touchdowns on the year. Aesop's up to 9. He has 59 catches for 9 touchdowns, and then it gets really even after that. Arconato has 5, Patman has 5, Travell Harris has 5, Borghi has 3 receiving touchdowns, and he is now the second leading receiver on the team. Borghi has 52 receptions for 434 yards, and Tay Martin has 3 as well. Remember, Tay had a couple of goal line touchdown catches over the last few weeks. Tay has 31 catches for 378 yards. So Borghi on the ground is where it's so impressive. He has 6.8 yards a touch, nearly 7 yards a carry. Cal was really good on the run defense in this past one. 585 yards for Max in total and 7 rushing touchdowns for Borghi, who has been just so good this year. That Cal defense is very stout. They have a whole slew of pros, maybe 6, 7, 8 pros on that defense. They were really, really good. For the world's most refreshing beer, 21 means 21. Celebrate responsibly with Coors Light, Coors Brewing Company, Golden, Colorado. We'll take a break, come back. Coach Leach is almost here. We'll be live here at Zeppo's with him in just a moment.
Coug Talk, 1-866-268-4825. Live from Zeppo's alongside Cougar head coach Mike Leach. Here's Matt Chazanow.
We are back here live at Zeppo's. It is that time of the week. It's Stanford week. It's the Cougs against the Cardinal. Coach, how was Thursday night football? A foggy Thursday night football here. You were in a cloud there in Martin Stadium.
Yeah, it was pretty fun to be out in there. And actually, once in a while, you get the stray just moisture condensation or something on your face. But it was pretty fun. Our film will be really crummy, but it was fun out there. Fun to be out there. And I've walked home on days like this, and I enjoy that too, just because it's got a whole different feature, looks different. You pretend you're everything from Sherlock Holmes to a vampire as you hike up to the house, and so it's pretty good. Once in a while, and I don't know if they can't see as well or something. Once in a while, you'll come up on some critters and get a little closer maybe than you generally would, which you'd think they'd hear you or something. I don't know. But anyway, I have, I feel like anyway, I've gotten closer to deer sometimes, out there and that stuff.
It's kind of thick. Yeah, you might sneak up on them. I didn't even think about that in a functional, in a utilitarian sense. That 22 film is, I don't know if it's useless, but it's kind of hard to see down on some of the video there when it's way up there, isn't it?
Yeah, so I mean.
For practice film.
Yeah, I'll have to see how it comes out. The one game I remember, the worst one I ever saw was, and some of you remember it, I'm sure, is there was a playoff game. The Chicago Bears had a playoff game in Soldier Field.
Yeah.
And it was just really thick.
Yeah, it was like the fog game. Yeah. I'm pretty sure the very selfishly, the guys who were trying to do what we're doing up in the booth, I think they kind of gave up. They just sort of stopped.
Then they just started talking.
Yeah.
Then they kind of did what we do on our show. Just ignore the task at hand and talk about whatever we want.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've never lived through. I mean, I've stared at you in some snowstorms and some rainstorms and kind of looked down like, oh, how are the coaches doing? What are they trying to, what are they doing to brave the elements? What's Jessamine wearing? Hey, Jess, how's it going? It's pretty dry up here in the booth, pretty toasty. How's it down there? That kind of thing.
Well, sometimes those guys in the booth will tell you what they're eating.
Nice.
They got food up in the booth.
I
think
think
tell you what you're eating.
Now that's the real broadcast, is what the coaches say to each other on those headsets. I'd love to hear that. That'd be great. I don't think it would be airable.
It'd have to be on cable, some of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's awesome. Let's talk a little bit of Cal real quick. What'd you think as you watched film and you've had a little time to process it, decompress from right after the locker room and post-game? Looking back, what do you think about the game against the Cal Bears?
Well, I thought they played really hard, and we didn't play together well. I didn't think we played together well. I think the single, by far, biggest problem was as a team, we didn't coach together well. We didn't play together well. And so, then it went from bad to worse. And then, there was some external problems that we could have overcome if we played better,
How good is their defense, that Cal defense?
I think they're good. I think they're one of the two best in the conference.
Yeah, them and Utah probably, right? You think?
Well, yeah, Washington's
pretty good too. Yeah, that's it. I mean, Evan Weaver leading the nation in tackles, and that was kind of that's what their reputation is with Wilcox and DeRuyter, and so there you go. They played a pretty good defensive game. Anthony Gordon still threw 400 yards, which is really impressive against that D. I mean, I appreciate that Max didn't have his biggest game, but how do you think Anthony played?
Yeah, kind of like the rest of us. No, I thought he played kind of frantic, at times. I think just as a team, we never got settled down. It pretty goes across the board. He's a talented guy, and I'm proud of him for throwing for 400 yards. But
sure,
he'd agree with everything I'm saying.
right?
Because we debrief all of this and.
Jihad had 8 tackles. Justice had 7. The first down, a lot of the stats were relatively speaking either even or first down 23 for the Cougs, 19 for Cal, and 33-20 was the final score. It got inflated there a little bit at the end, but there were a bunch of moments where it felt like the Cougs not only were right there, but now especially late in that first half drive, that 85-yard drive. You thought, okay, Cougs, after halftime, the adjustments will come out and kind of cruise right through. And, Cal, I don't know, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, we were into the we were well into the fourth quarter, and we were there well into the fourth quarter. Should have scored points, and and then the frustrating thing at times, more people were playing than just the football teams.
Yeah, well, right. We can. Yeah, I don't want to get you in trouble, but we can all read between the lines. But all jokes aside, the field goal block unit you said was really good. That it was pretty darn good.
Yeah, that was our one bright spot.
Yeah.
If you want a bright spot for that game, the one bright spot was the Cougar field goal block team was very dominant and had a great effort.
I think Misiona he blocked one with his helmet, and he had a big scuff from the ball. He reached up, but the kick must have been pretty low. He's pretty tall, but still, he got up there and right in the noggin, and glanced off. So Misi, I think, had both of them, one with his hand, one with his head.
Yeah, he's pretty good that way. And of course, he's played all those New Zealand, Australian sports. Australian rules football. Rugby, of course. And I think his dad played professionally.
I did. He played. I saw him at practice a couple weeks ago and was talking to him. Played for the All Blacks. He is a big boy. His dad is a large man, and with no pads on, to take him down in rugby is a tall task. That's a big guy, bigger than Misi. A little bit.
Yeah, he could take Misi still, I think, and that's pretty impressive.
It is impressive. It's probably true too. He's a really big guy. How big were you when you played rugby? How did you keep away from those? I'm sure you got in there a little bit.
Yeah, you were highly motivated to stay away from them. And then if one of them's on you, you just get little the best you can. And then if you have to tackle one, they're not the most dynamic, but you just sort of latch on and try to make one of their legs tired,
You're hanging on just to one of them.
Yeah. And rugby's a lot like football from the standpoint there's a role for different shapes and sizes. The thick, chunky guys, and then the tall, kind of D-end looking guys, and then linebacker looking guys. And, there's some guys, some of the best wings in the world that are, kind of 5'10", 175-pound kind of guys.
I told you a couple years ago on a bus on one of the trips for either basketball or baseball, I ran into a former teammate of yours on the bus. We were with the BYU rugby team currently. We were talking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was. It was great. He was talking all about your playing days and said to say hello. We this was a couple of years ago, so it's way back. But
we had a big time. We went all over the country. Went up to Canada, all that stuff. We'd have tournaments and get after it. And there's all kinds of wild rugby songs and chants. At BYU maybe didn't have as much fun as some of the rugby teams in the tournament, but still very fond memories.
Absolutely. Hey, post-game party never stops at Northern Quest, 24/7 gaming, over a dozen restaurants and lounges, luxury rooms, and more. Details at northernquest.com. You can get your write-in questions here in the restaurant in just a moment. I'm told those will be passed out. If you want to tweet at @M_Chaz, you can do that, or call in live, 866-268-4825, 866-268-4825. We'll be back here live at Zeppo's next.
At Boeing, we support events
Line at 866-COOG-TALK. That's 1-866-268-4825. Now, back to the show.
We are back here live at Zeppo's. It's the Cougs against the Cardinal this week. We're talking football and all kinds of things here with Coach Leach as we are right about the meat of the show here, right in the middle. Let's get to a couple write-in questions as they're starting to trickle in here for you, Coach. And these are not currently... We'll go away from football for a moment, and I just got these here. But an anonymous one here from someone, do you have any advice for a future teacher? Now, I know, and we talked about this, you taught in Los Angeles, and so you've got some experience with this. Do you have any advice for a future teacher?
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. I mean, first of all, it's very interesting. You'll have some of the most fascinating days of your life because all those kids are different. Their backgrounds are all different. The most important thing is stay curious and excited about learning yourself. The other thing is and this happens to a lot of teachers, definitely happened to my daughter. Some of those kids you're teaching aren't quite the angels that you were taught they might be when you were taking your education courses. Some of these kids are quite savage, so you better sit there and hang on and be ready to deal with that, because this isn't going to be just consistently delightful angels with a heart of gold. Still exciting and thrilling to teach them and to watch them grow, to watch them elevate, to watch them learn from one day to the next, but also there's some challenges too.
Did you ever run into? I forget the age group you were substituting for, but did you ever run into any where you kind of realized on the back end, like, wow, that was particularly devious? But pretty smart. Like that was really smart.
There's some that are very clever for sure. The toughest is shop. I mean, you go because some of those guys don't care, and then they know that the bookwork they're supposedly doing isn't going to count for anything, and so
they have like hammers.
Oh, there's staple wars. There's hammers. Sanders go off. They'll turn those Sanders on and try to race them across the floor like they're cars. So shop is very challenging. There'd be some clever, sneaky people doing some stuff. Climbing over the fence at this junior high I was at.
Like leaving school?
Well, trying to. They're planning to bail. Yeah,
trying to escape.
Yeah, they'd seen enough, and they were out. And then, girls in the back spraying that ozone-destroying hairspray. There's just a cloud. There'd be like a cloud. Their hair pretty soon is horizontal, and there'd be like a cloud. And you couldn't breathe in the room.
So would you be on, kind of chalk to the board, and you hear it like, shh, and then you
and they just blast away. And these cans, they were the size of those barbecue gas deals, and they're just firing away. And then it was pretty fun though. The toughest is junior high. Junior high is the toughest.
Well, I'm not sure which grade this future teacher is going to be in, but good luck, and that's fantastic. All right, so this is another one. What is this is just a hard pivot. What's the most superior potato product? And I guess like mashed potatoes, baked potatoes, maybe twice baked.
Even though it violates everybody's diet, I'd have to say homemade French fries.
Oh, yeah, that's delicious. Yeah, it's a great call. All right, a couple more in here. I know that this is related to that question. With all the restaurants booked for Dad's weekend, what would you cook us if we showed up at your house?
Not much. I can cook. I can cook to get by. And the only signature item I really have is gravy, because my wife's side of the family never really developed gravy skills. So to this day, I make the gravy. And I was old as a sixth kid, so I do know how to cook, but I don't consider myself particularly good at it. I can get by, but I'm not particularly good. So it'd probably be catered in from somebody that knows what they're doing.
There you go. All right, professional
like Desmore's or somebody. You know?
Perfect. Yeah. Hey, this is to be clear, this is the question. This is not me. My wife is pregnant. Any name suggestions? We don't know, and we won't find out the gender.
Name the child Sharon. That's my wife's name. If I had it to do over again, all kids and pets would be named Sharon, so that I can just remember one name and pretty well solve all the problems.
What are your thoughts on gender reveal parties? Are you familiar with the gender reveal parties?
I think they're okay if it's exciting for you and you're into doing it and have a good time and get everybody together and whatever brings people together. I mean, you can imagine how thrilled I'd be to go to a gender reveal party. So I would try to avoid it, but I think those that want to go ought to and have a great time,
Some of them are pretty extravagant with the way they, they'll have like 17 balloons and they'll all burst and there'll be like a blue or a pink that comes out. I mean, they're pretty elaborate. It's not like... Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'll let the others tell me about it, I guess.
There you go. This is, I know the answer to this, but do you play golf and are you any good at it? We've had this one before.
I don't play golf. I hate it. There was a time when I was okay, I mean, I never played very much. I just got too bored with it, but probably could hit 98 maybe.
Oh. That's not bad. That's pretty good.
I can keep it in bounds generally.
Yeah.
The only thing that saved me, to be perfectly honest with you, is I was a pretty good putter, so I didn't typically waste too many shots putting. But the irons, I was going to just spray those all over.
For sure. Yeah, that's putting's a really good way to keep the score down. All right, we'll take a break. We've actually got some football questions here next. We'll talk some ball. We've got more questions coming in. We're live here at Zeppo's talking here with Coach Leach.
You may be eager to break ground.
Coors Light, the world's most refreshing beer.
Back here live at Zeppo's, it is the segment of the show where we talk about the opponent. That this week is the Stanford Cardinal, and we'll get to the specifics on Stanford in just a second here. I want to ask you, or relay this question, which may be related, at least to this week. It says, and this is a write-in question from here in the crowd here at Zeppo's. Coach, you've mentioned leadership recently in some of your press conferences. Is it possible to coach players to be leaders, or does it sort of need to be natural to the player, and that just is something that guys are kind of work on their own or bring to the table before maybe they even get to campus here in the locker room?
I think it's a little bit of both. I think that some people just naturally have kind of a presence or charisma that they can do it, and some are going to be really good team members, but not necessarily leaders. I think it all starts with be your own leader. Lead yourself in a productive fashion. But some will develop leadership skills, especially if they're put in a position like the quarterback is always going to be somewhat of a leader because he delivers the message. So is the center with regard to line calls. So is often your Mike linebacker on defense. But I do think it's important to put them in positions where they can develop leadership skills, whether it's the various teams in the off season that you have competing with one another, and the weight room and things like that.
You ever watched guys evolve as leaders, maybe start off as freshmen and then their role grows on the team and they sort of grow into that? Or can you tell right away even like, oh, okay, this is a guy who's probably going to take this role and he's just a freshman or a redshirt freshman, something like that?
Both. You see guys that are just the quietest, shyest, timid people, and then all of a sudden, develop into great leaders. And then you'll also see guys that already have kind of a presence about them. R.J. Stone's kind of like that. I mean, you can see he's kind of a presence and a leader, just all over him type of deal.
Yeah, he's a big personality. He's a great kid. His dad played 13 years in the NFL and weighs 330 pounds and played offensive line. I don't know how much you've talked to Ron Stone at all. He's a mountain of a man.
Yeah, we need to play some of these guys' dads instead of them.
There's a lot of NFL dads. There's a whole Dominique Ross, Tyrese's dad, Ron Stone. There's a whole bunch of them that played in the NFL. It's quite common on the roster. This is a write-in question, and we'll get to Stanford. This is all sort of related to football for this week. But in your opinion, relatedly, what makes an excellent football player? What are the qualities of an excellent football player?
Well, first of all, he's got to be tough, and part of that toughness is being the same guy all the time, and being the same guy that does his job the same way with the same intensity every time, rather than fluctuate. So then you can build a reliability. I mean, reliability is really more important than ability. Prime example, Brandon Arconato. And then also, I think you need guys that hate to lose. They have to hate to lose. And there's a certain amount of social aspects to football, but I think it's critical to have guys that hate to lose.
We were just talking about leadership and now the qualities that make an excellent football player. The other part about college that I think everybody in their own way to a degree can relate to is a freshman from a senior or a graduate student is a very different maturity level on an individual level to varying degrees for different people, but you must be able to see some kids really blossom, some more than others. Like you said, they may be kind of ready from high school or whatever, but some kids as juniors probably are just come into their own.
And once in a while, some will regress.
Oh, right, yeah.
Some will become, they think they're going to be the social guy or something, or they'll, that type of deal. So, but generally they improve, and generally, if you have the right locker room, the nature of your locker room should elevate people if you have a good one.
Specific to Stanford now, this is the opponent preview segment. A lot of the same. When I was putting the boards together for the Stanford Cardinal, we kind of say this every year for Stanford. It's David Shaw's their head coach. He's been there for quite a while. He's in his 9th year. Lance Anderson is in his 13th year with the program, 6th as DC. Tavita Pritchard is in his 10th year on the Stanford staff. He's the OC. It's a lot of the same players, bunch of returners, Weddington and St. Brown at wide receiver, Colby Parkins. It's a lot of the same guys from year to year for Stanford, all back, isn't it? A lot of returners.
Yeah, they are. Those guys have been there forever, and they're all most of them are remnants of Jim Harbaugh's staff when he was there.
Yeah, it's in the similar, and obviously with that comes a similar scheme, a tight end heavy offense where they have this year it's Colby Parkinson, 6'7", 250-pound big guy, and they'll throw the ball to the tight end among a couple other targets outside, won't they?
Yeah, they like to throw to him. They're always a bulky physical group. They're always just real strong and just very physical.
And I would imagine defensively now, there's not a ton different. Casey Toohill is their tied for their lead in tackling. He's a returner, redshirt senior, but they go 2 seniors defensive line, all upperclassmen at linebacker, and predominantly upperclassmen at the DBs as well. It's a lot of juniors and seniors for Stanford, isn't it?
Yeah, they do that too. They manage to always have an older group.
Yeah, it's kind of wild how it's always the same deal. 4-5, they're 3-4 in the pack, and they also have 3 games remaining, but 2 in the league, the Cougs, and then they're home for Cal and Notre Dame. We'll take a break. We'll come back. We're up against it. We'll be right back here live at Zeppo's. It's the Cougs for Stanford Week.
Hey, I'm Kirk Herbst.
Show. Put your trust in a bank that's been focused on serving the people and businesses in Washington and all across the country since 1863. That's U.S. Bank, equal housing lender, member FDIC.
Back here live at Zeppo's, talking ball, talking all kinds of things as always. Having a good time here at Zeppo's. Daniel Hayes wants to know on Twitter, Coach, which position in rugby did you play?
I played, generally I played wing. So when varsity I played wing. And then, some of the other games I'd play inside center, outside center, or wing. So I was always basically inside center on out. Inside center, outside center, or wing, one of those.
So for those, me included, less familiar with the rugby terms, in my mind, I know, were you on the outside? Were you the last guy to take the pitch in the try?
The wing's the last guy at the very end.
Okay.
Kind of speed and open field tackles. And then outside center, kind of like that, and then inside center inside of that. sometimes if it's hard to get it out, you might scoot in a little bit.
Gotcha. All right, so kind of an outside speedster there. Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for listening. We've got a stack of write-in questions here. We will kind of just roll through these rapid fire a little bit. What is your favorite sports movie? And then as a side note, the table here says, we love you. This one's written on a napkin, Coach. It was an inventive group.
Hard to say the favorite. I think the best football movie is Friday Night Lights.
Great flick.
I think, though, that as far as best movie overall, Bull Durham. I like Bull Durham a lot. I like the first Rocky a lot. I'd say Rocky or Bull Durham.
There you go. Those are two great. Is there a particular...
Football movies are hard to do because there's so many moving parts, and you got people's heads covered up with helmets and 22 guys going one direction or another. So I think boxing and baseball movies have a distinct advantage.
How about Remember the Titans? You like Remember the Titans?
Yeah, that's good too.
Super fun. Every time it's on, I get sucked into that one. That's a great one. All right, how about, last Thursday was this gentleman's wife Janet's birthday, but we weren't here because we had the Kyle Smith opener, so happy birthday to Janet. Coach, we wish Janet a happy birthday.
Yeah, we absolutely want to wish Janet a happy birthday, and that was the worst thing that happened last week is we missed Janet's birthday, but
Yes.
certainly want to celebrate it now.
Yeah, happy birthday to Janet. Thanks for coming here to Zeppo's. What is the worst argument? Another write-in question here for those listening. What is the worst argument you've ever had with a player? I'm not sure we could air all the specifics.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember. You kind of call it as you see it.
Does that happen? I would imagine that's not terribly common that you'd really get into.
No, because if you got some guy that's just defiant, not going to do what you tell him over and over, you cut him.
What about Clay McGuire? Did you ever get into it with Clay a little bit, or
not really? I mean, just generally speaking, if you're not getting good effort, then you yell.
Yeah.
But if you're getting good effort and they're just incorrect or make a bad play, then you teach and encourage. Because I mean, if a guy's trying as hard as he can, then you got to find a way to coach him different to elevate him. Now anybody can have great effort. If you're not getting great effort, you pull the pin and let it loose.
about Dave Nickel? Was he would he ever snap back?
Well, Dave was a GA by the time I got to Tech.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
Dave was a first-year GA. But yeah, I'd get on McGuire a little bit. But McGuire was a real conscientious, kind of hard-working guy.
Yeah.
Just chronic lack of effort guys are the guys that probably. But I don't know. Usually if you have collectively bad effort, then you pull the group up, let them have it, and then, I don't know, put them in the sand or have them do rolls or something.
Sure. Cindy Z wants to ask if you regret any of the time you spent studying law, or are you always glad for those choices?
That's a good question, and I've thought about that some. I would have got into coaching potentially 3 years earlier, which, would have had a benefit, I guess. But you learn an awful lot in law school, and law school is quite an initiation. It's not as fun as undergrad because every class is, you guessed it, law. So it's not like you're taking some really fun electives or something. It's law A through Z, and they're all law. I really like my anthropology class or my art class. No, there's none of that. It's law. And then you compete with some of the smarter people around, and so part of the way they got there is they're quite ruthless and devious, some of them. So you have to grind away at that. So there's some meanness that has to come into the deal, and then but I think it teaches some pretty good lessons as far as having how to respond to having more stuff than you can cover, but featuring the most important things.
Thank you, Cindy, for that question. Coach, do not answer this question. Somebody tried to kind of side door it here. Hypothetically, Have you ever seen a bad call by refs which cost a team more than 57 yards? We'll skip that. Next question. If you couldn't coach football, what sport would you coach? Which sport would you coach and why? Baseball.
Baseball.
Yeah.
I coached baseball.
And you did, right?
Yeah, I loved baseball.
Yeah. Big. And I don't think we even realized that till like last year or so where you were such a baseball guy.
Oh yeah, well that's how I started out. Part of it because you could coach. While I was playing, I couldn't coach football, but baseball. Over the summer and stuff like that. Yeah.
Thank you for that question. Another write-in question here. We just got a couple more. With Thanksgiving coming up, just a few weeks away, and Zeppos does such a great job feeding the whole team. What is your favorite pie to eat? Do you have a favorite Thanksgiving pie?
My daughter, it used to be cherry pie. I used to always get it for my birthdays because I didn't like cake, so I'd get cherry pie and have had a lot of cherry pies for birthdays. And then my daughter started making these blackberry pies, fresh blackberry pies. And sometimes those blackberries, when you consider like in the winter and stuff, that thing may end up being a $50 pie before it's all said and done after you buy all those blackberries. Dead of winter, okay, let's see blackberries. All right, $7 a little carton here. All right, eat up. And then, but it's kind of worth it. And so my daughter Janine, the oldest daughter, when she makes a blackberry pie, it's utterly outstanding. Also, blueberry deserves a nod, but it's not as good as blackberry. A really good peach or strawberry pie is hard to ignore.
You around Huckleberries from like
I've never quite sorted what's the difference between huckleberry and the Marionberry. I haven't figured out the difference between a Marionberry and a blackberry.
That's a great point.
Maybe huckleberries are in that thing too. I'm not like cataloging a scientist on this. I just kind of eat it and then tell them what the thing needs if they want to do better at it. So I'll even coach family members up on some stuff, which has to be incredibly annoying. Anyway,
if you go to Glacier, you'll see there's clearly an emphasis that they want to export the huckleberry from that region because there's like tons of retail shops. It's like the huckleberry capital of America. There's always
they look good too.
Yeah, they are. They're really good. Here's a football question for you. Max Borghi has run the ball so well. Do you try to find different ways do you try to get creative because he's been so good to try to get Max the ball more or differently? Or when you've got a weapon like that, how much is it just up to kind of Gordon once he's back there with the snap, or are you there kind of creatively thinking, hey, let's feed Max at times?
We try to get the ball to Max as much as we can. We get it to him a lot. He leads the conference in of the guys that don't return kickoffs because for all-purpose yards, you start out pretty much with 20 yards every kickoff. So I've never thought that was an entirely fair number to include, purpose yards. But if you don't count the kickoff returns, Max leads our conference in all-purpose yards. So from that standpoint, he's the most productive player in the conference when it comes to rushing, receiving combined. Which that's kind of the gladiator award there. That's the tough distinction and. And I think he's third even without the kickoff return yards. But the easiest way to get yards, heck, I could, I'd probably have 200 yards right now if I was a kickoff guy and I survived getting crushed, So
yeah, that's exactly right. He's third. If you take away the special teams players from this list in the pack, he is third overall in total yards. And you're right. They have the kick return and punt return yardage in there.
Yeah, if you subtract the kickoff and punt return yards, Max is number one.
Yeah, how about that? He's got 1,015 total yards and averages 112 a game. Max right now has 86 carries and 52 receptions. So you can do the math on that. He's touched the ball quite a bit. So we need to take our final break. We're up against it. Our last segment coming up. Those are all the questions here. Thank you for writing them in. We're live here at Zeppos talking ball and talking all kinds of things here with Coach.
Remember all the
minutes left. Our studio host, Jake Eisenberg, does a great job, and he does the scoreboard updates during the broadcast. He just texted us to make a note that Marion Barry was the former mayor of the District of Columbia. That's important to note that we were just talking about Marion Barry's, and Marion Barry.
Well, when I first saw it at Sherry's, I thought they were pulling my leg,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny. All right, so we've got just a few minutes left here in the show, and we've got this game against Stanford and a chance home here in, I believe, what is already a sellout on Dad's weekend, and it must be nice to be home. Feels like you haven't played a home game in forever. It's been
about a month, yeah.
That's a long gap because you've had the bye week and you went to Eugene. So last time we were back home, I had to kind of rack my brain, was that Colorado game, which almost feels like another season, as weird as that sounds.
It sure does.
It's so long ago. So now you've got the Stanford game and then the Oregon State game, and then you head out to Washington. It's been an odd year in a lot of ways. It really has been, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's unfolded. Just sequence, kind of funny.
Yeah, some stuff. And
our conference has in general.
That's true. Yeah, it's been an odd year. It was a year that started with 6 ranked teams, and then we've kind of woven in our way. And some stuff you can control. A lot of it you can't. It's been a year. What do you do sometimes, Coach? I'm sure you've been doing this a long time. But what do you do when things you can't control don't go your way? I mean, what can you do?
No, you just do everything you can to stick together and play hard.
I would imagine there have been some long discussions. In fact, I know there have been through the times of Super Dave. You guys have been in the corner office there trying to, with the coaches and everybody keeping it all together and working through everything week to week.
Yeah, no, that's all part of it,
In some way, I would imagine you come out on the back end through some of this stuff, it's cliche to say, but you kind of come out better for it. You try to come back next year reloaded and ready to roll, because when you battle stuff like this, it's not all sunshine and roses, and you come out sort of stronger for it and maybe together as a unit in some degree. Is that fair to say?
I hope so. I mean, we've definitely have some lessons to learn, and we've got to be better next year.
This is now. I don't want to get ahead of things. You've got big opportunity here against Stanford. A 1:30 kick. Also, not only has it been in some ways a weird year, it's a 1:30 kick, which also feels really early, which is sort of odd. Also,
we've always been on 7:30 kind of guys. Yeah,
4:00 felt early. We finished a 4:00 kick, and I kind of walked out. Forget what's going on. You get home and you look at your watch. It's like 9.
Yeah, which I think is a good time. I think the perfect time to play is somewhere between 2 and 4.
Yeah, the 2 to 4 o'clock window, 1:30, obviously not being too far, is pretty pleasant. By the time you're done, there's other stuff going on.
Well, you can get on the next game.
Yeah, is that what you do? You just kind of look at your own? You hunker down for obviously your priority. You talk to Alex, which is key, and then you go up and do your thing in the film room.
I'll try to get past the previous game. The game we just played, which gives me a head start on the meetings, and then the following day full into watching the opponent.
Thank you, Coach. Thank you for the time. Go Cougs. Much thanks to Jared Brengruber over there behind the scenes. Jerry Kylo gets us on the air every week. Jake Eisenberg back in the studios. To everybody who is here, and Zeppos and everybody listening, go Cougs. 11:30 airtime on Saturday against Stanford. And then basketball on Sunday against Idaho State and Beasley.